Hello, my name is Benjaman Kyle. You don't know who I am, and quite frankly, neither do I.
On August 31st, 2004, a man was found outside a Burger King restaurant in Richmond Hill, Georgia. The man was found completely naked, beaten, and covered in blood, with no signs of identification on him. According to the employee who found him, he looked like, quote-unquote, somebody tried to kill him. The man, who was initially thought to be homeless, was rushed to the hospital for treatment, and fortunately survived. Unfortunately, though, when paramedics asked for his identity, he could not remember his name. More so, he could not remember anything about himself, how he ended up in this situation, any relatives or friends, or anything before his discovery. He went under the pseudonym Benjaman Kyle, spelled with an A because that seemed familiar to him for some reason. Benjaman spent the next couple of years trying to uncover his identity with the help of government officials. He took several DNA tests, researched the birth certificates of those born around his remembered birth year, did facial recognition tests, underwent hypnosis in an attempt to uncover some memories with a few results, and even appeared on talk shows like Dr. Phil. It's kind of amazing and terrifying that despite all the search efforts and publicity he's had for over a decade, no one knew who he was. He's unidentifiable. The story of Benjaman Kyle is truly a fascinating one, and is the case that led me to create this video. I really am baffled that no one has come forward claiming to know Benjaman, and he remained missing for over a decade. Thankfully, in 2015, a genealogist named C.C. Moore was finally able to track down Benjaman's identity through an Indiana high school yearbook from 1967, uncovering his real name as William Powell. William still has no recollection of his past to this day. This case led me down a rabbit hole of similar cases of missing identities, some more terrifying than others. On December 1st, 1948, a man was found dead on Somerton Beach, just south of Adelaide in Australia. He was propped up on a seawall with little to nothing on him, save for a half-smoked cigarette on his lapel and a strange note that read, Tamam Shud, a Persian phrase which means ended or finished. With no identification on him, this man became known as the Somerton Man, or sometimes the Unknown Man. After the body was taken to the Royal Adelaide Hospital, doctors found that all name tags and marker labels had been clipped from his clothing. He had no wallet on him either. There was blood in his stomach, leading the doctors to believe he may have been poisoned, but nothing in the food remaining in the stomach had any indication of poison. A strange, unidentified orange thread was found to have been used to stitch his clothing. The coroner, Thomas Cleland, hypothesized that there were two poisons that could have been administered to the Somerton Man that could have dissolved by the time the autopsy was performed: digitalis and strophanthin. Blood and urine tests found no traces of any poison though, so the ultimate cause of death was simply heart failure. Whether it was caused by poison in a self-administered way or with murderous intent remains unknown. The case was a standstill until 6 weeks later, when an abandoned suitcase was found at the Adelaide railway station. The same orange thread material that was found on the Somerton Man's clothing was found in the suitcase. It was identified as the luminous barber thread, a rare thread that couldn't be found in Australia. All the clothing found in the suitcase was the exact same size as the Somerton Man's clothing. A few name tags were found with T. Keen written on them. Sadly, this brought in no new leads, and the trail went cold again. Months later, a man walked into the detective's office with a copy of the book that the phrase Tamam Shud came from, which had been ripped from his book. He reported that in December of the previous year, when the Somerton Man was found, he and his brother-in-law drove to Somerton Beach. When they returned, they found the copy of the book in their car. The detective, Sergeant Lionel Leanne, looked inside the book and found 2 unlisted phone numbers. The first number was nothing but dead air, but the second led to a young nurse living in Somerton known as Justine. with her real name never being revealed to the public. She claimed to have never known the Somerton Man, but almost fainted upon being shown a cast of his face. Justine was at first reluctant to speak to the police, but eventually revealed that she had given a copy of the same book to a man named Alfred Boxall. The police pursued this lead, only to find that Boxall was still alive and well, with his copy of the book still in his possession. They put the copy with the ripped phrase under a blacklight in order to find anything they may have missed. The book revealed a strange code with 5 lines of random letters, the second of which was crossed out, and the other 3 were separated by lines with an X over them. Naval intelligence was unable to crack the code, so they published it in newspapers to see if anybody else could figure it out. Nobody could. On June 14th, 1949, the police finally laid the case to rest. When the investigation was published in 1958, the report concluded with the coroner stating, "I am unable to say who the deceased was. I am unable to say how he died or what was the cause of death." In recent years, the Somerton Man case has been reignited by those curious about it. Many theories began popping up online, such as him killing himself after being rejected by Justine. She clearly has some sort of connection to him after all. Justine also had a young son who could have been the Somerton Man's son as well, due to their facial similarities. Another theory was that he was a spy who just knew too much. The poisons the doctor theorized were not your common run-of-the-mill poisons after all, and his appearance and coded messages only added fuel to the fire. Nobody came forward to claim his body either, even after it was broadcast all around the world. The mystery still remains unsolved, but perhaps someday the code will be cracked, and the identity of the mysterious Somerton Man will finally be revealed. On November 29, 1970, the burnt body of a woman is found in Isdal, translated to Ice Valley, in Bergen, Norway. The labels on her clothes were ripped out, and any form of identification had been stripped from her. It's almost as if somebody didn't want her to be found. They wanted her erased. Isdal is also known as Death Valley to the locals, as it was the site of many suicides in medieval times, as well as where many hikers fall to their deaths. However, this woman didn't appear to be a hiker, so what was she doing there? The body was burnt to a crisp on the front, specifically her hair and face, but oddly enough, her back was relatively unscathed. Police uncovered a number of objects at the crime scene, such as jewelry, a watch, some bottles, and a broken umbrella. She wasn't wearing the watch or the jewelry, they were just kind of there, which police found suspicious. The bottle labels had been rubbed off as well. With no identity, the police refer to her as the Isdal woman. As the trail begins to go cold, a new clue reveals itself at the Bergen railway station's lost luggage department. 2 suitcases were found, one containing a pair of glasses that had the woman's fingerprints on them, as well as various articles of clothing, money from several different countries, and a tube of medical cream. Much like the clothes on her body, all the labels had been ripped off here as well. Even the name on the prescription for the medical cream was removed. However, there was one interesting piece of evidence: a plastic bag from a shoe store in Stavanger, Norway. Upon visiting the store, the owner's son says that he recalls selling a pair of boots to a very well-dressed, nice-looking woman with dark hair. He says that she made an impression on him because she took much longer than any customer normally would to pick out boots. The boots found on her body match the boots from the store, so it's clear that these 2 women are one and the same. According to the son, she spoke English with an accent and had a very strong scent of garlic. The police used that description to trace her footsteps to a nearby hotel, where it was confirmed that the woman stayed there under the name Fenella Lorch. Except that wasn't her real name. It turns out she stayed at many hotels in Norway, using a different name each time, which meant that she also had several fake passports. After interviewing several hotel employees, it became clear that the woman left a strong impression on people. She also often requested room changes, which is suspicious. At this point, many people believed that she was a spy. The Cold War was in full swing at the time, and she was an elegant and wealthy woman visiting seemingly unimportant places. A mysterious code was found in the woman's suitcase as well, but after cracking it, it only revealed the places she had visited, which was already known. A police autopsy report reveals strange bruises, telling that her death was likely a very painful one. A high amount of sleeping pills were also found in her stomach, leading investigators to finally call the death as a suicide. Many people were not convinced, however. Given everything that had happened and how cryptic everything seemed to be regarding her death, it's clear that this was no suicide. Regardless, she was given a Catholic funeral and was laid to rest. In 2016, the search started up once again though. Upon examining the teeth from her skull, she had 14 gold crowns. This was unusual for someone her age, and the dental work was unlike anything seen in Norway at the time. Additionally, with DNA tests being more advanced today than they were in 1970, the investigation was slightly reopened to allow for more details. After tests came back, an extended DNA profile was revealed, showing that she was likely of Israeli descent. Given that it's only been 2 years since the case was reopened, perhaps the identity of the Isdal woman will be revealed. We'll just have to wait and see. Until now, all the cases we've covered have pertained to adults. While an unidentified adult is still a terrifying notion, perhaps even more unsettling is a child forever lost in death. Known as the boy in the box, as well as America's unknown child, the body of this young child was found wrapped in a flannel blanket inside a discarded baby's bassinet cardboard box from JCPenney's. The body was first officially discovered on February 25, 1957, by a college student who came across the box. That's the first official discovery, as it was reported to the police. However, 2 days prior, the body was discovered by a man who was checking on his illegal muskrat traps in the area. Being that his traps were illegal, he never reported the body to the police, so as to protect himself. The college student who reported the body to the police also waited a day before saying anything, as he was in the area stalking a young woman and was afraid to tell the police his reason for being there. After being reported to the police, posters of the boy were plastered everywhere in Philadelphia in an attempt to identify him. The boy had blue eyes, fair complexion, crudely cut brown hair, and deep, harsh bruises. Due to the cold weather, the boy was estimated to be in the box for as little as 2 days to as much as 3 weeks. Despite the amount of flyers and word spread about the boy, nobody ever came forward to claim or even identify him. The JCPenney box couldn't be traced to an owner, and the boy's fingers and footprints all came up negative when searched in the nationwide database. The police scrapped together what little evidence they had to try and figure out anything they could, be it the cause of death, the identity, or the murderer. The crudely cut hair indicates that it was cut after he had died, or at least shortly before. He was severely malnourished, had a chronic eye alignment, and had dark brown residue in his esophagus, indicating he had vomited shortly before death. The cause of death was revealed to be multiple blows to the head, confirming that this was, without a doubt, a murder. With no evidence as to who the boy was, he was eventually buried in a potter's field with a tombstone that simply read, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." The boy's body was exhumed in 1998, and mitochondrial DNA was extracted from his tooth. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to link him to any potential relatives, and the case remains unsolved to this day. A few theories exist about the identity of this boy. The first was quickly laid to rest, with the initial college student who found the body being considered a suspect due to his creepy behavior of stalking young women in the nearby area. However, he was cleared via a lie detector test. A nearby foster home was also investigated. However, all children were accounted for, and all the families were checked out. Some still believe that the owner of the foster home, Arthur Nicoletti, was involved somehow since he refused to take a lie detector test. The strongest lead in theory came in 2002, when a woman known as M claimed that her mother bought the boy from his parents in 1954 and named him Jonathan. He was frequently abused and was kept in the basement. He was also handicapped and was unable to speak. Eventually, M's mother killed him in a fit of rage after he vomited in the bathtub. This was the most lucrative lead the investigators had in the case so far, but it was debunked 6 months later, after it was revealed that M had a history of mental problems, and none of her story could be confirmed. Time is quickly running out on the likelihood that this case will ever be solved. Investigators are positive that if this case were to happen 10 to 15 years ago, modern technology would have been able to solve it by now. Sadly, it seems as though this boy's identity may forever be lost. Our final case covers not one, but two unidentified individuals, known collectively as the Sumter County Does. This young couple was found brutally murdered in the August of 1976 in Sumter County, South Carolina. They were found with multiple gunshot wounds, including one on their back, their chest, and the finishing blow on their throats. No identification could be found on their bodies, and their fingerprints and dental records gave investigators no leads whatsoever. The male victim, known as Jock Doe, was believed to have been somewhere between 18 and 30, and appeared to have had dental work that was performed outside of the United States. The female victim, known as Jane Doe, was believed to have been between the ages of 18 and 25. She had unusually long, natural eyelashes, and was clean-shaven and well-groomed, much like her male counterpart. They both also wore no underwear. There were no leads until that December, when a truck driver named George Henry was stopped in South Carolina for driving under the influence. Police found in his possession a stolen gun that had its serial number scratched off. This gun was eventually determined to be the murder weapon, but later interviews and polygraphs revealed that Henry was not the murderer. He claims that his brother, Jim Henry, gave him the gun as a gift. Beforehand, the gun was stolen by a group of thieves, leading investigators to believe that one of them may have committed the murder. A few trinkets found on the male victim included some notable clues, such as the initials JPF being engraved on his pocket ring, as well as a book of matches that were purchased at a truck shop chain with locations in Idaho, Nebraska, and Arizona. A man from one of the locations in Nebraska states he may have performed car maintenance for the couple, but has no way of knowing for sure. Another theory was that a serial killer named Henry Lee Lucas was involved in some way. Lucas confessed that he was in South Carolina at the time of the murders, and that he had killed a pair in Sumter County at some point, albeit an elderly woman and a young man at two different time periods. Police dismissed his involvement in the case. With no true leads, the two were buried in Oswego, South Carolina. Their graves were marked as male unknown and female unknown.